Oh, jeez. Ooh. That's some grinder control, boys and girls. Good work, mates.
That was stressful.
Stressy. Anyway, I'm gonna whack this on, see how it goes. So, with the FG cover, if anything, it's actually worse than the B series one was. Not that the FG cover's particularly worse, it's just that obviously with the B series, we never bothered to fit the plastic thing, which is a lot higher. It actually adds a bit more. So, anyway. I'm babbling, but see how this goes. Woo-wee! Check it. And we didn't pull the engine out, it's still in there. It's still in there. We're not lying. But that is freaking awesome. How good.
Yeah, that'll be nice.
Hell yeah, boys.
Well, we on now.
That's awesome, because it was actually a little bit stressy when we put the FG cover on, because we're fully committed to where that engine is now. There was no changing it. So if we couldn't get the bonnet to shut, it was gonna be problematic. Awesome. So obviously we've still got to re-brace. A lot of work to go into it, but it is sweet to know that it's going to shut.
I'm just thinking, looking at the clearance, I think we're all right with where that's cut back to. That if we went box, we could just box, I think, straight across there. And I think there's enough clearance for that to work.
Yep, we should have to be careful of that oil filler.
Well, that's the thing, I just have to know where that is in relation to that. Front edge, that's about 500. Yeah, which means it's back here.
Alright, cool.
So that's
be well clear.
That's the front edge there, so there's heaps. So I'll measure, I'll stick something in there just to check that height. As long as that's 25 mil to clear that, then we should be okay. I think.
Yeehaw. Awesome to know we've got clearance. We're going to try and fit the heat mat that originally came off this bonnet back underneath it as well. But anyway, we'll have a chat to our engineer about what he would like us to do as far as boxing it back in and how severe he would like us to go. Anyway guys, like I said at the end of the last episode, I've got to duck off early today and I've got to go to the machine shop tomorrow, so I won't be here for a bit, but Rex is going to work on the AC system. Righto guys, we are back today and a lot has happened. Rex got busy yesterday. You know, not like we're busy every other day, but Rex got a crap load done yesterday anyway. So as you can see, the guard's off. So we've had a few developments, a few things that have changed. Firstly, just after I left the other day and went home, I was talking to the owner about, I won't open it because it's full of crap in the back here, but where we were looking at mounting that surge tank in the back in this cavity, it's actually, all of that space is already used up. I hadn't realised. I'm pretty sure the owner had told me when we first talked about taking the job on, but it totally slipped my mind. But he obviously pulled all that out for our convenience while we had it here so that we could get at the battery and stuff. But there's a spare wheel that goes in there, and then there's like a cover over the battery, and there is a subwoofer and amp and stuff like that, and pretty much all of that area is taken up. So he really didn't particularly want us to mount the surge tank in there because it means he would have to change all the boot setup, which is totally fair enough. So we decided to change up a few things. So the area that we were looking at down inside the inner guard here to mount the power steering, we're obviously not mounting the power steering there anymore. We've decided to change the power steering to be over here. Power steering will mount in front of this wheel, underneath the inner guard. It'll mount down underneath, and we'll poke the lid up through there for filling and serviceability, and then that will be covered by the actual air filter for the air intake. So it should look quite nice. It should be really easy and neat to get at, so that shouldn't be a problem. So with that there, we are then going to actually mount the surge tank on the other side here in front of the wheel. Same area, but just on the other side. So the surge tank and everything's going to be up hidden in the bay, but again, nice and easy for serviceability, easy to get at. Should be nice and easy. So as well as that, Rex started working on this vintage air setup, and it is nothing like we expected. We were sort of expecting like a fairly tailor-made HQ setup that we could go in, but it's really not like that at all. It actually appears to be very obviously based around a left-hand drive car, and a lot of it has to be modified to fit. Just about all of it has to be modified to fit. The only things that come in the kit that are obviously strictly HQ based and related is the cover for the heater box here and the vents for the dash. But aside from that, it's basically just a generic kit that you just have to piece together and do yourself, which is obviously fair enough. We didn't have an issue with doing that. It's just not what we're expecting with the kit. Sort of worked in our advantage because it means in doing so, we can custom do everything the way we want to do it. So as you can see back here, all the old heater box and everything's gone. Rex has started mounting the kit up inside. The kit is actually, there's no fresh air intake for the kit. So it's purely a recycled setup inside the car. So Rex made an aluminium plate which blocks off the existing HQ fresh air inlet, which would normally be just above the fan. So that's all blocked off. There's none of that in this kit. It eliminates all that. And the way that we're going to run the lines, these are going to be the AC lines here, which are going to be into bulkheads outside here. And then these lines, they just give you the fittings. You have to get them crimped and everything yourself. So they will run sort of mostly hidden all the way up and around into the pump. And then we're going to mount the heater line bulkheads down underneath here, right down low. And they're sort of going to do a similar thing where they're going to be fairly well out of the way. Shouldn't be super bulky and in your face. That should work out quite nicely. And we were talking about with wiring, we're going to have a chat to Whitey's Wiring, the boys there, and see what their advice is about sizing and what to do. But our idea at the moment is to do a penetration fairly down low, right directly behind the engine. And that penetration, obviously all of our wiring for our coils, all of our injector wiring, and then all of obviously AC pump, everything that's going under there, knock sensors, whatever else is going to be there. That will all come out of this penetration and all just stay as hidden as possible underneath this cover, underneath the manifold. You know, hopefully hide as much of that wiring as humanly possible that we can. And then we're going to do another penetration in this, somewhere around this area. And this will be you know, all of the thermofan wiring and everything can come out of this penetration, run inside the inner guard there, along with those lines and everything, and then pretty much across here, hidden as much as possible as well to our thermofans and whatever else has to be wired up in the front here. So we are really hoping to basically hide as much wiring as possible. Not that the boys' wiring there at Whitey's Wiring is anything that's not nice to look at. Their wiring is impeccable, but just for the look of the car, trying to keep things, all that real slim look, you know, like we talked about, all color coded. That's the idea with the car, is try and make it as showy as possible without going to the effort of actually doing flat panel firewalls and stuff like that. That's getting a bit over the top, but with what we've got here, we're going to try and make it as nice and showy as we can. Also had a nice long conversation with Zoo Performance this morning about the manifold and what they can do as far as revising it. Basically just giving them feedback on what we think would be the best way to revise it to be suitable. So I pulled this off and cut off that piece, and that's what I was talking about. So the idea will just be to weld that flat, maybe polish it out. We'll see how we go. Not super worried. Where it is, I don't think it's going to draw much attention, so it doesn't have to be super neat. But anyway, we'll weld that flat, and then there's a perfectly nice flat space on the bottom of it to weld an AN fitting off the bottom of, and then we'll use that AN fitting to make our hard line for everything else. So with that trimmed up, that's the manifold actually properly mated up against the head. And that's how it sits. And as we were talking about, where this actually comes to, it actually is going to work out quite well. Probably couldn't have worked out better if we wanted to, actually. Rex is still doing AC stuff. A lot of work to go into this AC system. Even the vents for the demister, Rex had to custom make clips for the ends of them to hold each end up, because in the HQ there's only a single screw in the center of each side, because the stock HQ demister vent is one piece and it comes down into the center. It's hard to explain, but all it needs is the two center screws to hold it up because of the way it's designed. This demister vents for this thing, there's one per side, with only one side of them screwed on. They just fold and they just sag and sit down and didn't come up against the like the fascia properly where they need to be. So Rex actually had to make little clips that were like a little shoehorn clip that screw to the outside screw part of the duct. And what he actually had to do is pop out the outside little vent on each one so that you can slide them in, screw them up in the center, and then you can just pop that back down. And it's little things like that that take so much time that you'll never even see on this thing when it's finished. We were talking about it, it's really going to be like the 10% of the work that you actually see. The rest of the work goes into making sure you can't see things. So just so much time goes into that stuff, it's just ridiculous. So needless to say, I really thought that this kit was like a bolt-in affair. It's definitely not. This thing is going to look good though. Alright, so Rex has just finished a complete dummy install of all of the interior AC bits. So all of the tubing, all of the vents, the demister, the AC vents, everything's in. As you can see, it's pretty much going to sacrifice the entire glove box space, but anyway, that just is what it is. Not much we can do about that. The cover will still go on, obviously the lid, and it will still look absolutely perfect and fine. It's just that behind it will be all taken up with room because of this vintage air kit. So it's going to be freaking awesome cruising around in this thing with icy cold aircon. It's going to be mint. But yeah, just heaps and heaps of work. And like I said, it's work that you just don't see. You wouldn't see. No one will even know how much work went into getting it under there, except for Rex.
Well, that's where the effort goes, is that people don't even notice it.
Yeah, people don't notice it. That's what means you did it right.
Yeah. People notice it, like, ew, what's that? Bad.
Yeah. So this is the control panel, which does sort of fit fairly nicely here where the old heater panel did, or heater control panel did. But we are going to have to design and 3D print a bit of a fascia for it, just because of the way it mounts. As you can see, it's got posts and it's meant to mount from the back, which would just be an absolute prick by the time it's in there trying to do. So Rex is going to get on Fusion and basically take this as an opportunity to teach himself Fusion, like I did the other day, and try and design up like a 3D printed fascia board thing, something that you can bolt this to prior, slot it in, and then the 3D printed thing, you'll be able to bolt that to the dash, and then the fascia can go over the top, and that way it's easy to remove everything and it's easy to get at everything. So that'll be the plan. So that's the little water drain for the AC unit that Rex made as well. It does straighten up and the grommet actually goes back into the firewall. Nice little alley drain, which then goes back into rubber inside, so that you don't actually have to try and line that up with the hole to get the kit in and stuff like that. Just makes it real nice and easy to work on. So then yeah, it's just a flat cover that goes over there, which is awesome, so it doesn't contact the manifold. We've had a chat to the engineer as well, and he's given us the go ahead with what we wanted to do with the bonnet to brace it back up, so all good there. Righto guys, so it's been a few days while we've had to sort out a few other jobs that we've had here, but we're getting back into the HQ today. First things first is getting very close to it having to go to wiring, and there are a few things that we really want to have on it before it goes. Again, unfortunately, I do apologise to them about how incomplete the car is going to be. Definitely not what we wanted it to be, but quite a few things out of our control, which it is what it is. First thing is the throttle body obviously didn't come with a TPS, and we really need a TPS before it goes to wiring. Fortunately, we still don't have a fuel rail for the manifold as well, and I haven't ordered injectors yet because I'm waiting to see what the fuel rail is to make sure we order the injectors that are going to work best. So unsure on the ETA for the fuel rail at the moment. Zoo reckons they're on the way, but not sure when they're actually going to be here. So I know that I'm going to get US car injectors, so I'll just get down to wire the plugs to where they hopefully should be, and that's just going to have to be as good as that can get. But TPS, it's going to need. Another big setback we've had this week is we've got no phone or internet service here in the shed at the moment. A lot of you know out here in the sticks, we don't have any phone, internet, nothing. There's no phone line, there's nothing here. The only way that we were getting service is we've actually got a Telstra Cell-Fi Go repeater on the roof, which sort of just caught the edge of one sector of a base station, and that's way further away than it should be for one of those to work. So we're sort of just skimming in with phone service for a long time. But we have been having issues. Every time there's a power outage or a big downpour of rain, the internet drops out, and it'll drop out for sometimes weeks at a time. We think it's a problem at the base station end, not this end. But regardless, we've been trying to get onto Telstra to sort it out for literally 7-8 months now, and they're just completely useless to try and deal with. So at the moment, we've got no internet here, which makes things very difficult to do research, measurements, try and find out what the hell's going on, or even order anything. So that's been a real pain this week, and it's doing our head in. Just those few things that we really want to have. So as well as that, we really want to have pretty much the entire AC circuit and system ready to go before it goes to wiring, so that that's ready to go for them boys. That's another thing we don't want to be half doing. And in the meantime, we have actually received our new slimline 9-inch SPAL thermofans for our two coolers, so we can start working on actually mounting the coolers under the car where they've got to go. It's really frustrating because another really big thing that I really want to go on with is actually getting our shifter gate and things sorted out, and there's a few other things on the car that we really want to get 3D printed so that they're, you know, nice and work, and instead of making jinky brackets and stuff in the shed. But Fusion 360, the program that I used to actually draw all that stuff up, is a subscription-based program, and therefore you can't use it without internet service. So we literally can't even use that at the moment while we have no internet in the shed. So tell you what, running a business in this day and age without internet, it's not cool. Freaking sucks. It's pretty much impossible. So Rex has been working on our first cooler mount setup. He's actually made it out of angle because it gives it a nice, real solid mount. It's obviously sits up inside the angle, which gives it some really good protection from the bottom if anything was to sort of hit it. It's not that big of a deal because the transpan's lower than that is anyway, and the exhaust definitely is. So if you're going over something and hitting it on all this stuff, you'd have to be fairly unlucky for it to really do any damage to it. But regardless, even around like the front edges and stuff, we've got really good protection for rocks and stuff like that bit of angle. Not to mention it also gives lots of options for actually making a guard for the fins and stuff. We'll figure out something. I need to do a bit of research on what we can actually do about it. I have had people make suggestions. I just haven't had time to actually look into those suggestions yet. But there's plenty of options for us to actually drill, nut, cert, bolt, make up a guard for the bottom of the cooler. So that's pretty much how it's going to go. So there you have it, guys. That's our coolers mounted. Solutions are there. The most important thing is that they're mounted before wiring so that the boys can actually wire the fans up. That's the most important thing. So because we are still waiting for the fuel rail for this manifold here, there's been so many things that we've been waiting on that have been so delayed that have stopped us from ordering basically all of the line and fittings that we're going to need to do everything in this car, because there's going to be a lot of them between the oil, the trans, the fuel, all of the air, so all of the wastegate lines and everything. They're all going to be braid with AN fittings. None of this is going to be barbs and vacuum hose. You know, it's not the sort of car that this is. So it's been really hard to envision a lot of that without a lot of these parts that we've needed, and without having a fuel rail at the moment is the biggest hold up, because we're still waiting on that to know injectors and a lot of the fittings and stuff we need. So more delays. It is what it is. We can't finish a lot of this circuitry, and we won't be able to now. It's too close to it having to go to wiring, and so all of these lines and all that are going to happen when it comes back. But which is annoying, but the important thing is just to have everything mounted that we need mounted and in the car so that the boys can wire up everything they need to wire up. So that's the idea. I've ordered a pass-through speedo signal generator from Ultimate Conversion Wiring. It's on the way. Hopefully it's here a bit later on this week. We can have that on ready to go for the boys. We still got to pull this pan off and chuck a port in it so that we can have our trans oil temp sensor in this so that they can wire that up. We don't necessarily have to even have everything there. We just have to know exactly where it's going so that they can wire the plug to it. It's going to be much like our sump. We don't really have time to pull this all back out and finish it off like I've already talked about before it goes to wiring. So we'll just pick a spot in the sump and have the boys wire the plug to it for a temperature sender. Apart from that, you know, a diversion block will be on the firewall for them to do all that. So hopefully just about everything will be in the car ready to go. We still have a lot to go before it leaves, but that's what we're working at, is just making sure we've got everything in the car that needs to be there for wiring and not wasting time on anything else that doesn't necessarily need to happen. But anyway, so as you can see, Rex finished up this mount, painted it up, looks freaking awesome. Nut cert there, 2 nut certs on the gearbox cross member, even chucked in spacers for them, which are welded all in place. Freaking awesome, easy to work with, easy to add and remove. And like I said, once we get a guard on that somehow, it should be nice and safe and pretty broad protected. You come down the back here, we've got our trans cooler. So Rex measured up, did a lot of measuring up before he mounted it and did it this way. So I know a lot of people are going to point out the fact that it's shorter this way than it is this way, which would have given us more room. But by the time you account for AN6 fittings for trans, we really want this thing to be full flow 90s probably. And even with those, by the time you account for the extra room, they actually encroach further than it does mounted this way around. So there is a very good reason that it's mounted that way, but even back here it should be fine. Once the tail shaft is in there, the diff should have no movement side to side because of the way the lower trailing arms have been boxed in the Super bushes that we've been using. It should be pretty solid. It should only go up and down. So there should be no reason for it to hit any of this stuff unless there is something else very wrong. So that should be fine, and those lines will come from the back here pretty much straight up over the top of the diff pumpkin, out of the way, and then up the other side of the exhaust, up over to the gearbox where they will be for their feed and return. Anyway guys, that's going to do for this episode. Really excited to get into the nitty gritties with you about all of the sensors and things we've got lined up for this ECU and how everything's going to be controlled and to work. We're not going super overboard on this thing. It is a fairly simple combination. It's not a super overboard build, really. It's just nice and neat. And you know, the owner isn't one of those people that is going to be sitting on his laptop all the time driving it. So we're not going overboard with a lot of the things that, you know, if it was my car, I would be putting so many unnecessarily things in it just because I really like that sort of thing. And I like being able to monitor every single little thing. But the reality is, for the end user, for the person who's driving the car, if they're not going to really take advantage of that, it's not really super necessary, a lot of that stuff. So we're doing some pretty cool stuff, but it's not overboard. But I am excited to get into that with you in future episodes. Anyway, that's it for now. We're going to keep cracking along with this thing to get it to wiring. So looking forward to the next episode. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss anything. Smash that like button, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching, guys. Peace out. See you. Bye.